Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford will be casually late as always, and that's okay. We've come to expect that from him. Perfectly fine. It's very funny doing this job. There are often times where, in preparing the night before or the day of for a show, it's really not difficult, but sometimes a little harder than others to figure out, man, what are we going to talk about for 3 hours over the course of the show? Then there's days like today where I don't know how we're going to be able to cram in everything that we want to talk about over the course of the next 3 hours, because my goodness, there is a lot to discuss just in the world of Gamecock athletics, not to mention things going on elsewhere in the world of sports. Obviously, you have the Palmetto Series coming up this weekend between South Carolina and Clemson. Supposed to have a game tonight at Founders Park. We'll see how the weather ends up holding up. As of right now, the forecast not looking all that great. Of course, still the game at Segra, then the game in the Upstate to wrap up the series coming up on Sunday. So we'll see how the conditions end up playing out. Men's basketball hosting a ranked opponent for the first time since 2017 with the game against Florida tomorrow at noon. Women's basketball, after a big win last night, dominant win at that, taking out Arkansas and Fayetteville, closing out the regular season at home against Tennessee on Sunday. And, of course, literally just wrapping up a few minutes ago, we had the introduction of Mike Furrey, the new wide receivers coach here at South Carolina. Coach Beamer talked for about 30 minutes, and then Mike Furrey got up there, was answering some questions. We got to learn a little bit more about him as he joins this coaching staff for South Carolina this upcoming season. And hopefully that's the last of the coaching moves that South Carolina has to deal with this offseason, as Beamer alluded to right there at the start of his press conference. Was not expecting to be doing an introductory press conference on March the 1st, especially when you talk about spring football only being a couple of weeks away. You typically want to, or typically usually do have your, coaching lineup kind of shored up at that point in time. And South Carolina did until James Coley decided to leave a week ago and take the same job, out at Georgia. And by the way, Beamer did throw a little bit of shade, and I can understand, rightfully so. Feel like he was a little bit blindsided by the Coley decision to end up leaving. And we know now that Coley had to pay the $450,000 buyout that was part of his contract, whether he paid it or Georgia paid it, whoever. And Beamer said, hey, we used that money that he had to pay us a week ago to go out there and hire Mike Furrey, who he said was, in his opinion, a better coach to bring in at this wide receiver spot. And, everything that I heard from Coach Furrey there was good. He's a high-energy guy. Again, we talk about his experience as a head coach at Limestone and Kentucky Christian a little over 10 years ago as a wide receivers coach at Marshall, coached with the Bears at that wide receiver spot for a couple seasons. So this is a guy that's been there and done that, not only in the coaching profession, but also in the on the field aspect as well. And, he brought up his great season with Detroit back in 2006, bringing in, 98 catches and 1,100 yards. And then they went out and got this guy that they call Megatron, and things changed a little bit. But regardless, this guy's had success at the highest level of football, and that's going to resonate a lot with these players as well. So plenty to be excited about with him. And again, I just kind of looking at the reaction on Twitter and the live stream of the, of the press conference, a lot of people liked what they heard out of Coach Furrey there for those 20 or so minutes that he was answering questions.
Yeah, I mean, you did a nice job in the press conference. We can say, arguably, you won the press conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You came off really well. And again, is that everything? No, of course not. I mean, there are guys who have won press conferences and gone on to been disasters.
Right.
I mean, winning the presser is not a guarantee that you're going to be really good. But what you want to hear is, we're all about hope, Tyler, as fans.
Sure.
We love hope. We want hope. So if we, we want to see someone in their press conference just to make us walk away and go, all right.
I like that guy.
I like that guy. He kind of knows what he's doing. He sounds like he knows what's going on. He knows where a wide receiver lines up. I like this guy.
Right.
And that's all you really want out of a presser. Because once the work gets going, that's when you really start to find out what's up with anybody, right?
Right.
And yes, he hasn't been in a Power 5 league, as a wide receiver coach. Marshall's a group of 5. But again, Sterling Lucas came in with no collegiate experience, and they rave what he's like as a recruiter and what he's been like since he's been on the coaching staff. And so I guess the moral of the story is you really don't know until you know, right?
You don't, and so much about recruiting is about being personable. And for a guy that was a head coach in 2 different stints at Limestone and at Kentucky Christian as well, you're usually not a head coach if you're not a personable guy. So I would imagine the transition into, and look, he did recruiting at the D2 level, obviously, at his previous stop. So he's not foreign to it by any means, but I imagine he should be able to. And obviously, being in Gaffney, he's local to the South Carolina area when it comes to recruiting. So I don't think it'll be too much of an uphill climb for him to get acclimated.
I think that, again, we'll find out what's up, but once you kind of peel everything away, you go, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense. So at the end of the day, I've had some people say to me, oh, guy's never been in a Power 5 league, blah, blah, blah. But, well, neither is Sterling Lucas, and that's turned out well so far. Like you said, recruiting a lot of his personality to be able to, bond with 15, 16, and 17-year-olds.
Sure.
As a coach.
And people point out that, hey, you've never been at a Power 5 from the recruiting aspect. He has coached in the NFL. That is worth something. For 3 seasons, he was with the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. And so, it's not like he's never coached anywhere but Limestone or
right.
Kentucky Christian. He's been in the NFL. He was at Marshall. He has been a head coach in 2 different stints. Yes, it wasn't Division I, but still. And sometimes those are tougher. Those are tougher gigs.
Sure.
You got to, like we talk about the recruiting piece. I don't think old Mike was sitting at Limestone going, all right, where are all my recruiters? Everybody come on in the office real quick. All right, because, he was out there kicking it and doing a lot of the grunt work as a recruiter on that level.
I don't think he had the benefits of a helicopter either to go school to school at whim. I think he was putting a lot of miles on the car.
Wait a minute. You don't think Limestone had their own helicopter?
I don't think Limestone has a furry copter.
You don't think they had Limestone one?
I don't think so.
Okay, just checking on you. So, yeah, I mean, that's the one part of that is when you're on those levels, those lower levels, I mean, you're doing everything. Now, he's probably out there lining the field, running the little chalk thing. I mean,
selling concessions.
On the sideline.
Wait, aren't you supposed to be coaching?
Oh, he's on the sideline. Coach, you want to go for it on 4th down? Wait a minute. You got 2 hot dogs, soda. Do you want any chips? You go, be there. Hold on. Call a timeout. They left their wallet in the car. Hold on. Call a timeout. I'll be right there.
Hold on. I got to count change. 1 second.
Get the little good humor change thing on your belt. But yeah, so you do a variety of things.
Sure.
And that's another part of it that helps you as a head coach or being part of a bigger coaching staff or whatever, is you have to be a grunt, man.
Yeah.
That's what you are. And that's not saying that in a bad way. It's just, it's like anything. When you work in smaller areas of a business to move you up to bigger areas, you go through a lot of that stuff that some of the guys on a higher level who never had to go through the lower level have no clue.
Sure.
So, again, and you heard him in the presser. Sounds like he's got a little intensity, which is not a bad thing. And he talks about developing receivers. And one of the things that Shane has not been happy about, or I shouldn't say not happy, that Shane would like to see kick up a notch is the development of the receiver room.
And that is something, we've talked about this before. Sometimes it's not what he does say, it's what he doesn't say.
Mm-hmm.
And Beamer, very early on in his, introduction of Coach Furry, mentioned we want a guy that's going to be able to come in here and develop receivers. So it leads to the question, okay, sounds like Coach Stepp wasn't developing to the clip that Shane Beamer wanted him to.
And you hit it perfect. And I always listen to press conferences about what you're saying and how you say it.
Yeah.
Because it always tells me something. And that tells you something that this receiver room was not being developed to the level the head coach wanted it. Head coach makes that choice and that decision. There was a reason why James Coley was put as the wide receiver coach.
Sure.
Just saying. So now you bring in a guy who's played the position, really good in college at Northern Iowa, had a heck of a year in the NFL with the Lions, almost caught 100 balls, had another good year, played in the league for a variety of teams, played a little defensive back as well at times.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a grinder. I mean, he was a walk-on Ohio State. After 2 years not getting any run, he went to Northern Iowa. So this is a guy that is a grinder as well. So, and he's been if you look at his career, he's a career grinder, right?
Sure.
From walk-on to Ohio State to going to, Northern Iowa to rolling off to the Arena League and the XFL and all this other stuff he did before he got to the NFL.
Right.
And now his coaching career has been a grinder. I mean, he was in the NFL with the Bears, the wide receiver coach, because him and Matt Nagy have a connection. But also there's Limestone, Kentucky Christian. We were joking. It was like, I'd never heard of Limestone in my life. I just thought it was a rock. Elijah and I were kidding.
Right.
That's all I know about Limestone. So he's been also a grinder as a coach in a lot of ways, except, he stopped with the Bears is nice in the NFL. So we'll see where it goes. But I think Shane is done. Knock on wood.
He hopes he is.
Yes. We've had a lot of, hey, Shane Beamer's going to introduce this new blank, 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 blank coach 11 o'clock on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. So
Yeah, we don't expect those things to happen on March the 1st.
no. So hopefully Shane is done. And Shane's probably hoping that Shane is done. And we'll see where it goes from there. But we're going to play you some stuff from Mike Ferry coming up. Also, we will get you some Shane Beamer because Shane was at the podium almost a half an hour.
And Shane threw a little shade, a little bit.
You know what? I mean, I don't blame him because that's his personality. He does it, but
Sure.
he does it in Shane's way.
He does.
Me, I probably would just whatever and let it go. But it's okay. You know what? It gives us something to talk about, right?
It sure does.
And again, Shane's a nice guy. I mean, he's a very positive dude, excellent personality. But when the shade needs to be thrown, he's okay. He's okay with it. So we'll get to that.
Well, I obviously saw the buyout incentive of Furry's contract that is significantly
Did you see?
larger than Coley's.
Well, you see how it's set up, though. It's significantly larger right in the beginning, so you can't pull a Coley.
Exactly. It's like, well, then it'll drop off to 350. But it's
Ready.
like, I'm not going to get burned by this again.
In this first 60 days, your buyout's $1 billion. Is that a problem?
If somebody wants you bad enough, they're going to pony up.
$1 billion. Oh, anyway, so we'll get to some Shane, some Mike Furry. We got it all coming up. In case you missed some of the presser, we'll re-rack some shorter cuts. Maybe we'll even grab a couple longer cuts in there between now and 3 o'clock. We'll get back in here. There's a baseball game that's scheduled to be played tonight. We'll see. We haven't heard anything yet. We'll see what happens. But there's a baseball game scheduled to be played tonight, weather permitting. Kind of an important baseball game in these parts at Founders.
To say the least.
This team named Clemson, people know here a little bit. So we'll get into that coming back as the toughest test of the early 2024 season for the Gamecocks. These 3 games with the 10th ranked Tigers, one at Founders, one at Sagro and Bull Street, and one in the Upstate. All right, so we'll come back and yap about that. And do not forget, you could possibly win $225. It's so simple. It's the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Basically, we don't. Palmetto Citizens puts $25 in the pot every game. If a Gamecock doesn't hit a home run or a Grand Slam, 25 more go in until a Grand Slam is hit by a Gamecock player. Right now, we're sitting at $225. It is the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. Go to 1075thegame.com. Look at that little thing at the top of the website, little flippy thingy, the media roll or whatever it's called, media reel. Once you see Grand Slam giveaway, click on it, fill out the form. Guess what? You could win. So go do that, and maybe, just maybe, the next time the Gamecocks take the field, Grand Slam, you can win $225. All right, we'll come back, talk some baseball, Gamecocks and Tigers this weekend. We'll get into it next on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. right, halftime show or the halftime show. I don't know what that is, but we're the halftime show or the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. Like I said, big weekend of baseball. Hopefully it'll start at 6:45 tonight. We'll see. In the forecast, every hour, if you look at, weather.com, every hour says rain, 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 rain.
Yeah, it started sprinkling when I went to leave this morning, and apparently has not let up since and doesn't show any signs of doing that. But weather's a weird thing, and you might get a window. You never know.
So you're telling me that it started raining when you left.
Yes.
So this is your fault.
I guess so.
Okay. Nice job. Good work, Bob. Good work. I just love people like that really quick, where it's always my favorite. Oh, when you left the house, it started raining? Well, then you should have stayed home. Or this one. Everything was going good. You said something about it. It's always my favorite. Hey, car's running great. Then like a couple days later, something happened. See? You opened your mouth, didn't you?
You're talking to a very superstitious person, so I understand.
You superstitious people. You ruined.
It's one of those things like when something's going too well, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to acknowledge it because you're afraid it's going to go in the other direction.
Because that's why it's so funny. Look at the no-hitter in baseball. It's one of the funniest things in the game of baseball. Dude, sort of no-hitter. Nobody's sitting next to him.
Oh, no. You got to
nobody.
You treat him like he has the bubonic plague.
It is not spoken of.
It is not. And then if you're watching the game and your pitcher is throwing the no-hitter and the announcer says, through 6 innings, no hits allowed, you're like, oh, no.
You screwed it up.
Or no, what's worse is, only 9 more outs to get that no-hitter. Oh, God. Mm-hmm. He screwed it up.
Way to ruin the juju, dude.
Just like the classic, well, he hasn't missed a field goal one time this year.
Yep.
Guess what?
Or this
missed that field goal.
He's made 744 straight free throws. Clank.
745, not so much.
Clank. So tonight, weather permitting, 6:45. And Clemson, obviously the best team that South Carolina's played all year. It's not even close.
Sure.
Tigers, top 10 in the country. Clemson offensively, pretty potent. Let's grab a couple different cuts here. Tyler, let's go with Mark Kingston. First of all, cut 24, scouting the Clemson Tigers.
They have some returning players that are very good as well. It's not a completely new team, but there's some returning players that are really, really good. You've got to look at video, and so the video we've been able to find of their game so far, we've done the best we could in trying to make sure we're prepared. Our assistants are working very hard, preparing, looking at scouting reports, everything you need to do to be prepared. But when there's turnover in a roster, regardless of who you're playing, it just means you have to invest more time on the front end.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about today, Tyler, is, in the old days, teams stayed together longer. There was more cohesion. Scouting was a little easier. Now you got guys coming in from everywhere, transfer portal, rosters, even good teams. Rosters are flipping over a lot more than they used to.
Right.
Scouting's a whole different beast.
It is, and from an offensive standpoint, the 3 guys that they would be familiar with from a year ago are the top 3 in their lineup, Cam Cannarella, Will Taylor, and Blake Wright. Cam Cannarella got a hit in all 3 of those games against South Carolina last season, and Taylor and Wright both got RBIs in the second game, so guys that have had a little bit of success against South Carolina in the past. But, 4 through 9, completely new guys coming from the transfer portal, guys stepping up into other roles, and, it is virtually a new team compared to what they saw a year ago.
And, last year, this series, South Carolina took 2 out of 3 from Clemson.
Yep.
And year before that didn't go very well. So you've broken down the Mark Kingston era is every other year.
It is literally every other year. He has a 3-3 split with series for Clemson, and in the even number years, it's gone Clemson's way, and the odd number years, it's gone South Carolina's way. So unfortunately, we're in 2024, which leads you to believe it's Clemson's year. Hopefully, that doesn't happen.
Well, you've probably jinxed it now.
I guess so.
Now you said something out loud. Well, maybe a good way. Because maybe it'll stop going the way it's been going because you jinxed it.
If I double jinx a jinx, that means it's not going to do what I don't want it to do, and instead it's going to do exactly what I need it to do, if that makes sense.
No, it makes no sense, Tyler. I have no idea what the hell you just said in any way, shape, or form. But I'm sure it made sense to someone.
If somebody else out there is really superstitious,
yes.
They're like, yeah, I get it.
No, absolutely. The superstitious person went, Ford, that made plenty of sense. What's wrong with you? All right. Also, as we were talking about the Clemson Tigers, let's get to Stuart Lake from who's on Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Let's grab, because obviously a ginormous rivalry.
Sure.
Let's get to Cut 19, though. Stuart Lake's observations of Clemson. Cut 19 there, Tyler.
Well, honestly, up until probably Wednesday, I had just kept up with Clemson through scores. And then you start putting them side by side, and some numbers really jump out. When you start seeing their team batting average 330, 17 home runs, you compare that back over to Gamecocks offense that's been putting up averaging almost double digits, 285 batting average and only 11 home runs. So those two jumped out at me. They're doing very well getting on base at 441, but we're doing unbelievable at 474. And then the runs, which are always crucial, obviously, 84 Gamecocks, 69 Clemson. So I think you're going to see a very similar type team. They've got Cam Canarello, who's 517 with his 576, and then you go, okay, we can do you a little better. We got Brewer with 519 and 622 on base. So it's really going to be cool to watch these two teams match up this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson, power-wise, Clemson's got the advantage so far through the season. But South Carolina, it's interesting offensively, Tyler, that they're a much more well-rounded offense this year. Now, are they going to score as many runs as they did last year? Well, we don't know. But it seems like last year, it was a lot of home runs or bust. Once the season kind of got cooking, they were pretty, again, in non-conference, they were more versatile on offense. But once things started to get into more of the SEC schedule, it was a lot more of a big percentage of runs being scored via the home run.
Yeah, they're finding a lot of different ways to score this season, and we talk about this so much because Kingston talks about it a lot, the plate discipline that they have. They're leading the nation in walks drawn so far this year, and God, they've had it wasn't walk-offs, it ended up being run rule games, but 2 quasi-walk-off, walk-in RBIs to end a couple games so far this season. So that just kind of speaks to their discipline, not striking out at a concerning clip at this point in time. You're going to have strikeouts, that's just part of baseball, but playing really smart baseball at the plate, and it's led to winning 8 out of your first 9 games, and hopefully translates well this upcoming weekend. But going back to what Stuart Lake said there about this Clemson lineup, as I mentioned, you have the 3 guys at the top that you're very familiar with, but up and down their starting 9, everybody is hitting above at 333 or above so far this season, with the exception of Will Taylor, but he blasted 3 home runs the other night against USC Upstate, so he seems to be heating up at the right time. So this is a lineup that can kill you, and no matter where you find them, and it's going to be a big test for the South Carolina pitching. Yeah,
Easily the biggest test for the Gamecock pitching staff. It's a good test.
Yeah.
Have it now. Early in the year, you're feeling pretty good at what you've had so far on the mound, but now you're going up against an offense that is really good, and if you make mistakes over the plate, they can hit baseballs like at Segra. They can hit baseballs, maybe hit our radio station.
Maybe.
From Segra. So this is going to be a nice test for the Gamecock pitching staff. We'll talk more about South Carolina, Clemson throughout the show. We'll turn back in here. Mike Furry had his press conference today, the new wide receiver coach. Shane Beamer introduced him. Shane had some comments as well. We will get back to that, and maybe we have some comments from Shane and Mike on the way. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, here on The Game. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game as we go till 3. This afternoon between 3 and 6, again, Jay and Elijah will give you a chance to win Battle of Bull Street tickets. Battle of Bull Street Gamecock Baseball Trivia between 3 and 6. So be ready for that. 2 more chances to win a pair of tickets for tomorrow's game at Segra between South Carolina and Clemson.
Which the weather looks good for that one.
Yes, I think that one's going to be okay.
That one will be fine. Sunday, I believe, will be fine in the upstate, too.
Yep. So, and really the word is, again, we'll find out, but obviously Mark Kingston is not down with playing a doubleheader this weekend.
No, and especially when you're talking about 3 venues and one make sure Founders gets its game, and I don't know the logistics of playing 2 games in 2 different places on one day, even if they are just, not far from each other. So one game at a time.
Logistically, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And do these teams want to play a Monday? Well, can you even play it Monday? No.
There's rules.
Yes, there's so many rules about so many things. I feel like if this one doesn't get in today, you have a 2-game series.
Or maybe try and reschedule it in the midweek if you have a Tuesday or Wednesday that both teams can agree on.
Somewhere in the future, maybe. Well, we'll see. But I don't see that make good happening any time around this weekend.
Probably not.
Yeah. All right, so we'll keep you up to date on the weather and what's going on regarding tonight's game at Founders. But it looks like the weather will be solid for Battle of Bull Street tomorrow at Segra. Also, Tyler and Elijah, our staff meteorologists, will be out at Segra, our Battle of Bull Street hype-up show.
I can bring my weather rock. If it's wet, it's raining. If it's dry, it's not.
See, look at that. Tyler will bring his weather rock. It'll be fantastic. Tyler and Elijah will be out broadcasting live, getting you ready for the Battle of Bull Street. They'll be there 10 to 11:30. Then 11:30, we got hoops. Pre-game. The first time 2 ranked teams have played at CLA since 2017.
Funny enough, Florida was the last team to come in here and
Isn't
do
that
it.
wild? So South Carolina, Florida, a big game for positioning, standings-wise in the SEC. So that gets going here at 11:30, noon tip. You want to stay in the top 4 if you can and get the double bye.
Sure.
That's really what you want.
Well, and last night was very interesting because or not last night, a couple nights ago, you had Tennessee taking down Auburn, Dalton Connett, I guess, specifically taking down Auburn himself because Tennessee is still at the top of the SEC, which is still obtainable for South Carolina because you still got a game with Tennessee where you could realistically, have the 2 wins in the series there. But that bumped Auburn down a game below South Carolina, where now South Carolina sits solidly in 3rd, while Tennessee and Alabama are tied at the top.
There's a lot to be decided still.
There is.
In the SEC. And, look, I get to Tennessee's in first. Tennessee plays defense, and then they have a dude they haven't had in a long time.
He's special.
In Dalton Connect. You don't believe me? Ask the Auburn defenders who tried to stop him.
Hey, he finally got clicking at the end of the game South Carolina played against him. It was just a little too late.
Yeah, I mean, the good news was Connect struggled against the Gamecocks. Part of that, the Gamecocks did a nice job D'ing him up, but the second thing is he was missing shots.
Right.
Guys who are that good, a lot of times you're just hoping they miss shots because there's only so much you can do to guard them.
Sure.
And even if you're guarding them and you're getting in their grill and whatever, they're just either so good or playing so well at the time or on a heater that all you're doing is as soon as they snap the ball off, you just go, please God, let that miss.
Right.
Because you're not doing anything to stop them because that's the level they're playing at that moment. So Dalton Connect has been unreal this year, and it's a story. Look, if we were joking about it, Jay and I, was it yesterday? If you gave Rick Barnes some of the old Falker Truth Serum and said, "Hey, bub, do you think this cat was going to be this good?" Rick Barnes would go, "No way."
Well, I'm trying to remember. What was it? Northern Colorado? Was that where he was from?
Yeah, he was in Big Sky. He was second team all Big Sky.
Yeah, his numbers were fine, but they weren't dominant.
Look at those numbers at Tennessee in the SEC.
It's insane.
One of the 2 best leagues in America compared to his numbers in Northern. You know what it was? He just had to get away from Northern Colorado.
I was going to say it was those dominant teams in the Big Sky.
They were shutting him down.
Playing at elevation, it affects your shots. Something to do with
whole
that.
Different deal. His vertical, his bounce wasn't good.
That's right.
Just different.
Couldn't breathe properly.
Yeah, different deal. So that will be tomorrow, starting 11:30 pregame, noon tip. Florida and South Carolina, and again, Battle of Bull Street later on in the afternoon here on the game. 3:45 pre-4 o'clock first pitch. All right, a couple cuts real quick from Shane's presser a little while ago, 11 a.m. Mike Fury, or Furry, whichever way you want to go right now.
I believe it is officially Furry.
I think it's Furry, too.
We said Fury, which I think is a cooler name, but
I think Fury's awesome, but I think Furry, if I remember, is... Yeah.
If you make him mad, he's Coach Fury.
Hey, you don't want Coach Furry to become Coach Fury.
That is guaranteed been said at least one point in his coaching
Absolutely.
career.
I like it. It's sort of like, the Hulk.
That's right.
Don't make him mad. Turns green. Bad things happen. All right, here is Shane Beamer discussing he wanted to bring in a wide receiver coach that could develop the room.
Just looking at our wide receiver group as a whole, wanted to get someone in here that can develop our guys a little bit better than what we have. And the fact of the matter is, if you look at who we were playing receiver with last season, it's guys that we inherited, that were here when I got here as the head coach for the most part, or transfers that we had brought in. Had been a little disappointed, and again, it starts with me as the head coach. I've been a little disappointed with the freshmen that we've brought into a program that we recruited and their development. Obviously Nick Harbor played a lot for us last season, but beyond Nick, there really hasn't been one in the last 3 seasons, and that can't continue.
And yeah, if you think about it from that perspective, you see where Shane's going. I mean, Nick Harbor played last year. I mean, part of that was freakish physical athletic ability. You want to get that dude in his blazing speed on the field.
Sure.
But I mean, and you watch Nick, look, it's not easy to play wide receiver in the SEC, especially if you've never played wide receiver in your life.
Right.
So no one was expecting Nick Harbor to go on the field and become, the reincarnation of Randy Moss.
Right.
When you watched him last year, you could see the rawness in Nick Harbor's game.
Of course.
But you also saw the potential, because he did make some plays.
He did.
So you saw the potential, but you also saw the rawness and what needs to be developed. And Shane has looked around and in the last 3 years. He says, we're really not developing these receivers the way we need to, so we need to look at this and go in another direction with it.
Well, it answers the question of, okay, well, why did you move step over to tight end when you brought in James Coley? Because they looked at it and said, okay, we've seen James Coley be able to develop talent at this spot before to a better clip than what he'd seen out of Justin Stepp up to this point. We think that gives us a better opportunity with our wide receiver, so we're going to do that. Still, you didn't fire Coach Stepp. You just moved him over to tight end, similar type of spot where he'd still be involved with what's going on the offense. He obviously wanted to continue to coach wide receivers, so he took the job at Illinois, and obviously then Coley ends up going to Georgia instead, so he had to go back to the drawing board, but quickly found, Mike Furry, and again, that's a guy that's been around and coached at a lot of different spots at a lot of different levels that, again, Coach Beamer feels like can come in here and give them that development that they want.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is nothing against, Justin Stepp. It's just, if Shane Beamer didn't think Justin Stepp had what it took to be on the staff, Stepp would have been let go.
Sure.
Just like Coach Hardesty was let go. So it isn't about, Shane Beamer looked at it like, Justin Stepp is not a good coach.
Yeah.
He's just not happy with the development of the wide receiver. So you move Justin Stepp to the tight ends position to work with the tight ends and, regarding their receiving abilities and things of that nature. Justin Stepp obviously wanted to be a wide receiver coach, so he went somewhere where he could coach wide receivers. But the development piece, the head coach did not see the development he wanted to out of wide receivers. And Nick Harbor, look, you got Nick Harbor for 2 years, 3 tops. And you want to maximize those athletic gifts at the wide receiver position.
Well, hey, nowadays it's not guaranteed. With the portal, he could
go somewhere.
If he's not happy with where he's at here, he could always
and
go
that's
somewhere.
Another part.
Yep.
That's a great point, Tyler, is what if Nick Harbor's not happy with his development? We saw the quarterback Dante Moore leave UCLA to basically go be a backup at Oregon because he wasn't happy how he's being developed at UCLA and wanted to go somewhere where he could be developed.
Sure.
So, yeah, to your point, if Nick Harbor is frustrated with his lack of development and thinks part of it is he's not being coached up, he might want to go somewhere else where he feels like they'll develop him. So all that's involved here. You have Mazio Bennett. You got a few young wide receivers here that you want to be able to develop to get them on the field to help you win games. Because, again, Xavier Legette, and we'll give Justin Stepp credit. I mean, Xavier Legette was developing while Justin Stepp was there as the coach. So, again, if you're going to knock on somebody for lack of development in one end, if a guy does develop, you got to say, what did Justin Stepp do to help Xavier Legette develop? Was he instrumental, or did Legette just kind of do his thing himself to get where he's at? That we can't answer. But Leggett did develop.
Sure.
So we got to be fair. But you don't have Xavier Leggett anymore. You're hoping there's going to be another Xavier Leggett in that room, right, Tyler?
Well, not only do you not have him, you have a room that's made up of primarily new faces. Gage Larvadain, talk about Jared Brown coming in from, Coastal Carolina. Like, it's a relatively new wide receiver room.
I mean, and that's the part, too. You're bringing in guys from other programs, and the wide receiver coach is going to be in step with the offensive coordinator to get all this on the same page. And, okay, this guy's skill set is here. Who's going to be out wide? If Nick Harbor's going to be out wide at one spot, which we all hope, who's going to be at the other spot? Is it going to be a freshman? Is it going to be somebody that was a freshman last year that didn't get a lot of run? Or is it going to be one of the many portal wide receivers you brought in? What's going to happen here and there? There's so many moving pieces with the wide receiver position. So we'll see where that goes with Mike Furry coming in to coach the room. We'll get back. We'll hear from Mike and also get the Firehouse Subtext of the day at 803-404-6100. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head hanging on the game. Oh, it's time to get that Firehouse sub text to the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler Head?
Oh, our guy Steve never lets us down.
Is it our boy Steve?
Our boy Steve. He says he fired Stepp. It gave him the opportunity to find another job to make it look like he wasn't fired. Keep being naive. I don't know how many times we got to beat this into your head, but if he wanted to fire Stepp, he would have fired Stepp. He didn't have to disguise it by
Why
moving
would
him
you
to tight
disguise
end.
it?
That's stupid.
Steve, we love you deeply. We do. We do. But, Steve, if he wanted to fire me, just fire him.
Yeah, I don't
Why-
know. I don't know why this is so hard to comprehend.
I mean, ready? Coach Hardesty, we need you to go find another job so we don't have to fire you.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt your feelings.
All right, so
we're gonna move you to tight end. Go find your other job, and then we'll mutually part ways with you. No, if you wanted to fire me, we would have fired.
because we've already got this master plan ready. My master plan. We've already got Coach Elliott ready to come in. We're going to move you to tight end coach because we don't want to fire you, but you got to go find another job so we can move Coach Elliott in to be the tight ends coach.
Yeah, sure, because that's believable.
Hey, Coach Limbo, we want to bring in an NFL special teams coach really bad. Why don't you go find a head coaching job?
Yeah, and I don't care. I don't care. You know, people point to, oh, they had a good relationship and they're friends. I don't care what kind of relationship they had. When you're a head coach, sometimes you have to fire people that you're good friends with.
It has happened.
It happens.
I mean, I've heard stories of NFL head coaches having to fire their friends. I'll give an example of one, and this will go to Baltimore. Brian Billick was the head coach of the Ravens. Brian Billick was friends with Jim Fossil. Now, Jim Fossil was the head coach of the New York Giants. Fossil had been an offensive coordinator in various spots. Billick brought in Fossil to run the offense in Baltimore because God knows it needed it at that time. Eventually, Billick had to let Fossil go because it just wasn't working. He hated it because Fossil was his buddy.
Right.
And he had to let his buddy go because it just wasn't working. It happens. Look, if you're a head coach and you want to be a head coach, the number one thing for you is, what are those things called? W's.
That's right.
Everything else is secondary to W's. It just is, not just for the coach, but for the university, for the fan base, for the boosters, the alumni. Everybody just cares about your W's. Why do you think if a coach is really good, if they're dirty and slimy, they keep getting jobs?
Because they win.
Because they win a lot. Think about Rick Pitino for a minute.
That slime ball.
Think about Rick Pitino. Should we go over the Rick Pitino history? Rick Pitino.
We only have 2 hours left. We don't have enough time.
Rick Pitino, Louisville alone, had multiple things. And finally, after they got him wiretapped, in the whole FBI scandal with Adidas and money and all that other stuff.
Repeat what you said. The FBI was involved.
Yes. Then they finally had to let him go. I mean, again, if you think that when they were having those parties at Louisville for recruits and the team that involved strippers and prostitutes and all those things, if you really think
He didn't know anything
Rick
about
Pitino
that.
had no clue that was going on, stop it. I always went one further. Remember they put this on the student manager, the coach, the student.
Yeah, like they facilitated all this.
The guy who's the student coach or whatever the case, they blamed him. Now, I'm guessing these parties cost a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
How much money annually does a student coach get?
Do they get anything?
Don't get much.
Not much.
So you think
they get a free sandwich?
Yeah, you think this cat's affording those parties? And no one knows, and no one's funding it, but maybe the lowest paid guy in the room. Come on, really? But Rick Pitino keeps getting jobs because he wins, and he wins a lot, and he wins big, and you can hang banners and go to Final Fours and win national titles. If Rick Pitino was a 10-20 coach, Rick Pitino would be working, he'd be working at the Piercing Pagoda, for the love of God, or Spencer's, getting you those cool cards for birthday for people.
You'd be that guy, coaching the YMCA basketball league, or he's like,
Yeah.
that guy was a former Division I head coach. Really fell hard, didn't he?
Right. I mean, if the worst sin you could have as a college coach is to cheat and lose.
Right.
if you cheat and win, everybody's going to take up for you. They're going to try to, save your job. They're going to make excuses for you. They're going to throw a bunch of bodies in front of you. But if you're losing, cheater, you're not doing what's right and what's moral.
Right.
So to go back to the original premise here, Shane Beamer's job is to win,
Yes.
not to feel he can't hurt Justin Stepp's feelings or Montario Hardesty's feelings or anybody else's feelings. I'll be honest with you, Marcus Satterfield was probably going to get canned if Marcus Satterfield didn't land with his buddy Matt Rule in Nebraska.
Probably. Was he not worried about hurting Hardesty's feelings like you said? Well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
He was with him for 3 years.
Yeah. This whole idea there's a big conspiracy on this. Everything we've heard.
Shelve the tinfoil hats.
Exactly. There's no conspiracy in everything that's been told or heard about from this end of many people. That was a legit move. And then Stepp went, I don't think I want to do that. Thank you. I want to be a wide receiver coach. Sorry. No conspiracy. All right, come back in here. Football in the 1 o'clock hour. Our buddy Dimitri coming up at 1:15. All righty, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, man. You got the shoulders going, man. I forget we're on video every now and then. It just kind of slips my mind. You're not right now. We're going to get you back soon. We're having a little camera 2 issue here. We got to.
You know what? People got to see me for 3 hours earlier. They may have gotten their fill. I haven't shaved in a couple days. I need a haircut.
Kind of a scraggly
I'm looking
dude.
rough.
What is up with you?
Well, you know, I like to maximize my sleep in the mornings.
Well,
so
to be fair, you really had your sleep screwed up here lately. So
I did have to catch up a little bit yesterday afternoon. Thankfully, no phone calls this morning very early. Bill was in good shape to come in today, which we're all thankful for.
Yeah, that like I said, I don't know if you talked about it on the air or not yesterday, but yeah. So I'm laying there, and you know, I have no problem sleeping. Thank God, the sleeping gods shined upon me. I don't have. You know, I fall asleep easy.
Right.
Typically, I stay asleep. You know, I sleep pretty sound enough to where I can still hear stuff, but I'm pretty good. I'm not a light sleeper.
Right.
Well, I'm laying, sleeping in bed. And, you know, sometimes you think it's your dream. You have like a random phone ringing in your dream somewhere.
It's that transition where you're coming awake, but you're not fully awake.
And so I'm like, the phone's ringing in my dream. And it keeps ringing. I'm like, please tell me that's my dream. It might not be my dream. So I sit up, and I know the time was burned in my mind as I picked up the phone, 3:42. Hello? This is Bill. I know. Because when you see, it's like, I don't think Gunnar wants to call and talk to me about the great win the men had in hoops.
Yeah, he's not telling you about the, I don't know, new car he's getting or something.
When someone's calling at 3:42 in the morning, it's not to chat.
That's right.
So Bill, again, long story short, obviously, you know, you're listening yesterday. Bill was out. He was sick. So my next phone call, because Tyler's become the guy that comes in when Bill's not here.
That's right.
And we like to try to stay consistent as much as humanly possible. So then I'm like, okay, let me see if Tyler can do it. If not, then I'm going to have to do this. And I haven't done morning radio. I did it for years, and I did it long enough to where I never wanted to do it again. So I'm like, let's see if Tyler can pop in. So I dial Tyler. And he calls me back because he had the same thing. Like, is my phone ringing?
So I keep my phone right next to my bed, and my ringtone is the Office theme.
Oh, nice.
So that's
very nice.
That's what you know, when I get a phone call, that's what I hear. And like, I heard it, and like in my mind, I was like, I know I'm getting a phone call, but I wasn't awake enough to process it. And then like as soon as it went off, it clicked. I'm like, oh, Terry's trying to call me, and I kind of figured I knew what it was for.
Oh yeah, because I'm not calling the chat.
Yeah, you weren't calling to catch up either, so I called you back, and yeah, you're like, again, neither one of us were completely coherent, but we managed to piece together enough of a conversation.
Grunt. I got the phone and go, I think he's coming in. I think he is.
Yeah, so we talked for, I don't know, 30 seconds, 8 minutes. I don't know how long it was, but we got done what we needed to get done.
Yeah, so then you had to come in, so your sleep's been all screwed up. All right, so obviously Mike Furrey introduced today as a wide receiver coach at South Carolina. We heard Shane talk about how important it was to bring in a wide receiver coach who could develop the wide receiver room. Here's Coach Furrey. Which one do you want to go to first, Tyler? We got like 3 cuts.
Let's see here. So, you know, he's a guy, and there's about a 2.5-minute clip here. He's a guy that people talk about his energy a lot. And, you know, somebody that's very intense, you know, high motor kind of guy. Here's him kind of talking about what his energy is and what it's going to be bringing to this position.
Well, I think it's there's 3 things that I've built myself, and I think it's what's called a method. And I've carried this with me my whole entire life. And the first thing of that method, to me, if you can create the method, that creates success, right? And I think the first thing that it's guaranteed is effort. I think when you go out there and you watch us run around, it's not going to be shy of effort. It's not going to be shy of exhausting ourselves for a better purpose, and that's our team. And we'll practice like that. We'll play like that. We'll run routes like that. There will always be a purpose. But it's going to be a maximum effort that's going to be behind that. And that's in everything that we do. Again, going back to the question about development, you know, some of the greatest ones I've ever been around, they give max effort in walkthroughs. Right now, I know the tone of things, and I know how you slow stuff down, and I know how to go crazy on things. But when you have maximum effort, when you give effort, that means it's important. Right? That you're telling somebody it's important to you. And so you're trying to make sure that you can maximize that. And so I'll talk to our guys all the time about giving 110%, right? More than the normal. Become rare, right? And then goal-oriented, okay? And I call that level up. We'll talk about leveling up every day. I talk to our guys about just making sure that we have goals that we want to reach. Goals for now, goals for the team, individual goals, and how do we get there? And to me, when you become goal-oriented, well, then that's going to make sure you're locked in on your goal, which to me now becomes your discipline. Your discipline in your route running, your discipline in your studies, your discipline in your academics, your discipline anytime that, whatever it is, anytime that we take the field. And again, I think through all those things, what evolves then is a great teammate. And I think when you become a great teammate, then you become a great group. And when you become a great group, now you become pretty lethal. And I think all those things hit really well. They're very self-explanatory. They're easy to manage every single day. But I just don't think you live any different. And I think if you do live any different, then I think you're wasting what the good Lord's blessed you with. And if you're going to waste that, then I'm going to get after you. And like Coach Beamer said, just like coaching, you know, if that's not for you and this isn't for you, and if this is not how you want to live and this is not how you want to pursue the best that you can become for your team, well, this might not be the best place, right? But that's how you got to find out. Rather than putting hope out on the field, you're going to put a product. And that product's going to be daggone stinking good, and they're going to freaking run around like a bunch of banshees and play ball.
Doggone freaking good and run around like a bunch of banshees. I like it.
I mean, again, look, he's saying the right things. And again, we still got to see what he's going to do as a coach when the season rolls around. But, I mean, those are the kind of things you say to win the press conference.
Oh, sure. And the press conference was good with Mike Furrey. I thought the other thing I did, I would want to ask is when he went, he says, you know, he talked about a method and the process and all that.
Yeah.
I've always, and maybe it's just me, always been interested in the dorky stuff like that.
Sure.
I would want to raise my hand and go, Coach, welcome to South Carolina. My name, David Dare. Game. Quick question. Can you explain a little bit more about this method thing? What's the method? You said you've lived by it since you were, you know, a young guy. What's the method? Hook me up with the method. Maybe I can start using it. God knows I need it. So I'm always interested when they start talking about those kind of things is what exactly is it that you do?
Right.
What is your thing? And what part of your thing are you going to make their thing? I've always been interested in that because some people it's like a big thing. And sometimes it's something really easy like, you know, I get out of bed and I crack my knuckles and I drink a raw egg.
Sure. Those are the guys you usually don't want to mess with.
Right. Because when guys have all that going.
When they're not the least bit concerned about salmonella.
Once I was a kid, I saw the Rocky movie, the first Rocky movie. And my man Rocky puts a 3-4 raw eggs into a cup, drinks it, it's running all over his face.
Yeah.
And he goes out and starts running. And I'm like, bleh. No, thank you. We want to cook those, Rock. No offense. But yeah, so you like what you hear in the press conference from Mike. And again, it's all about developing the room. The one thing about wide receivers, and anyone knows this who pays attention to football, wide receivers are a bit diva-ish. So to get all those guys, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but to get those guys to bond together and to play for the good of the group and to say stuff like, you know what you got to do, Bob? Yeah, you got to block.
Right.
Yeah, you got to block. And, you know, because when I was a very young Terry Ford at, you know, a very low ability level, I played wide receiver when I was younger. I know you're shocked I didn't play nose tackle. I know you're stunned. Again, play wide receiver, dude. You want to run routes. You want to catch passes. You want to make plays. Oh, I got block? Ugh. First of all, I weigh 56 pounds. Who the hell am I blocking? And two, I don't want to block. But so being a wide receiver, blocking is not why you signed up for that position.
Sure.
But really, almost every run that breaks and breaks for a big gainer, if you watch the replay, you know who's blocking downfield?
Usually the wide receivers.
The wide receivers. It's just something. And look, you don't have to pancake guys. Just get in their way. It's all about effort and want to. You got to want to go do it. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's the one thing we've changed in life, Tyler. It's kind of interesting. Is we don't want to, we don't, right?
Of course.
Sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do because for the good of the cause.
Right. Well, and you see a lot of wide receivers at college and professional level that go through the motions. It's like, I got my arms out. I'm blocking them, but I'm not really blocking them. I'm not engaged because as soon as they get those arms to the outside, oh, no, we got away. and then goes and makes the tackle.
Well, you saw that with Pickens in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
Your former Georgia guy.
He did it at Georgia too.
I mean, remember he didn't throw that block during the season and
Right.
got roasted.
Yeah.
Got roasted about not making that block for the Steelers. And Pickens was, said, man, I won't get hurt. Come on, man.
And look, for somebody like him that clearly was the best guy on the field in high school, it was probably like, do I really need to block, coach? Like, we'd like you to, but you don't have to. And, I'm sure he got away with it for a while. But, again, when you come to college and get to the pros especially, it's like, all right, you got to do the full complement of what your job asks you to do.
Right. And so wide receivers don't dig blocking. They
No.
just don't. And you got to get guys to buy in who are on the diva-ish tip, so to speak, to get them to buy in. You got to do some dirty work so we can win games. There might be a game where you get 2 targets and no catches, but we win by 30, and we won by 30 because you helped out by making some blocks.
Right.
That's the mentality you got to get, where a guy cares more about the scoreboard than the stat sheet.
Right.
And that's kind of, I guess, what Mike is talking about when he's talking about getting everybody to buy in the room. And everybody, if they buy in the room, then it becomes a collective in the room and not a bunch of individual guys just trying to do the best they can for themselves. So Mike's talking about the buy-in.
Right.
And interesting. We'll get some more cuts from Coach coming up because football. But next, our buddy Dimitri Ravenos will pop in here, his podcast.
I love the new name, by the way.
How good is that? It's phenomenal.
It's true. If you're a Panthers fan.
It is. The misery of being a Panthers fan. The bag on the guy's head is so good.
What team popularized that, by the way?
Saints. They called it the Aints.
Okay.
It was the original bags on the head, if my memory serves me, was the Saints, and they called the team the Aints, and they all wore bags on their head.
Because I remember, and Mike Fury was on this team, the 08 Lions had a lot of bags on the head.
Oh, yeah. The players wore bags on their head on the field. That team was bad.
They didn't want to be associated with that team.
It was bad. All right, our buddy Dimitri is next as we talk some more football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, right here on the halftime show on the game.
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can't escape us that easy, Dimitri. Well, it's better than talking about the Carolina Panthers, I guess. It's funny. It's usually Terry that forgets about this, but he actually remembered this time. That's why I'm here. You know what I mean? I got to manage one side of things. We were trying to convince some delusional listeners about, you don't keep coaches on staff if they're not doing their job, no matter how beloved they are by the community, because apparently, coach, some people think that, they didn't want to fire him because he's so loved in Columbia. Yeah, right. Right. It's ridiculous. All right, coming back in. Welcome back in. It is
Halftime
the
show.
Halftime show.
Terry Ford,
There we go.
Tyler Head. We're here till 3 on the game. It's football. Did you get our buddy Dimitri?
I do have our guy
Is he
Dimitri.
ready to roll?
See, you know what's funny?
Uh-huh.
Typically, you're the one that forgets when we have Dimitri on, and
Yeah.
I quickly remind you in the break, like, hey,
Yeah,
we actually
right.
have Dimitri in this next segment, not whatever you were talking about. This time, he actually forgot. He was watching Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, well, you know what? If you're going to blow us off for something, Curb Your Enthusiasm is totally acceptable.
I've not started the new season yet. I've decided to go back and rewatch everything leading up to the new season. So I am just now into season 7.
Oh, then you're doing fantastic. Very nice. I can see Dimitri going, do we really have to do this? I'm kind of in the middle of a little
No.
binge on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
No, honestly, I literally an episode ended as Tyler texted me, and I was putting on my bike helmet to go for a bike ride. So
You know what would
now
be good? To get him on while he's next week, you're riding your bike and you're doing this.
Listen, I am wearing a bike helmet as we are doing this right now.
I'm trying to picture Dimitri with a bike helmet on.
Well, considering the state of the Carolina Panthers program, you might need to keep that helmet on over the course of watching this next season, because you might have to be aware of falling objects, because everything else has gone wrong up to this point.
Yeah, this is great advice after the EKG goes flatline. Thank you so much.
So, again, if someone does not know the name of the podcast, throw it out there and let's pump that baby up.
Yeah, this team is killing us. A podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people is the name of the show.
What the Carolina Panthers do to good people. That's like the coolest line of this whole thing.
Yeah, we didn't ask for this life.
That's right. Wasn't our fault we were born in the Charlotte area. So, all right, now we see a team. What are they going to do in the first round? Nothing.
Yep.
So, looking at what they have in draft capital, and obviously they need to add many pieces. What is the strategy? First of all, what is the strategy? And we know everybody's lying this time of year. I get it.
Yeah.
But what do you think their strategy should be going into this draft? Just the best guy on the board, or should they kind of look at something different than what the normal good teams do in a draft?
I don't want to say best guy on the board, because if you add a running back, say at pick 33, let's say James Blackshear from Texas is right there. I'm sorry, Blackshear plays for the Panthers now. Who's the guy at Texas this year?
The running back coming out.
Yeah. I can't
His
think
name, I'm blanking right now. I know you're talking about.
Let's say he's there at 33 and they have their eyes on him. Well, you're bringing another young talent into the backfield behind a line that doesn't work. I would say draft the best offensive lineman at both picks 33 and 65. I mean, I think you got to use your first 2 picks there. The other real need is going to be wide receiver, and this is a pretty deep free agent class. Like, I don't think you can find the kind of difference maker on the line amongst the free agents that you can amongst the wide receivers, and this team is probably only going to have enough money to re-sign their guys and make one big move in free agency.
Dimitri Ravenos hanging out with us, talking Carolina Panthers here on the halftime show in the game. Or I'll throw this scenario at you and tell me if you have any confidence in Carolina pulling off something like this, because we don't know. We have very little confidence in the Panthers to do anything right. So you're sitting in those two spots in the draft. And let's go to your point. What you really want to do is you want to fortify your offensive line. So let's say you get to your pick in the second round, and let's say you have a running back as a top guy on your board, and you don't have an offensive lineman in like the top 3 or 4 on your board at that point. I trade down, accumulate more draft capital, and still get my offensive lineman. Do you think these guys have – because, again, I'm a dope, and I can think of that. Do you think – don't agree with me when I say I'm a dope, Dimitri. That's not what we do here. We don't do that. That's what you say, no, Terry, you're a quite intelligent man.
Sorry, I thought there was a delay.
Do you think if me with the very lack of brain matter and brain cells that I have can think of that, how confident are you to think those guys would work the draft board to maybe maximize more capital and still get some targets that they're looking at?
I think Dan Morgan has kind of been trying to lay the groundwork for fans of this is not outside of the realm of possibility, right? One thing I've liked about Morgan since he took over as general manager is he doesn't seem to have that attitude of protecting past bad decisions, right? Like, I don't think he's going to really think twice about making Miles Sanders a cap casualty or Hunter Henry a cap casualty this year if that is what needs to happen. I said Hunter Henry. I meant Hayden Hurst.
Same guy. Don't worry about it. Same guy.
Yeah, double H, big white tight end with long hair. You know the one. Yeah, I think it is possible. I actually would say that I think if after day one, you don't see someone there that you want that can make a difference on your offensive line, why not float 33 to the open market to bring in a player as opposed to trade down? I mean, if you can get I don't know that you're going to get a left tackle, a decent left tackle if you offer pick 33. You could probably get a pretty good interior guy. You could probably get a pretty good center for 33 as long as you are getting some years and it's not a dude on the tail end of his usefulness. I'd be A-okay with that.
Yeah, I think you got to get creative when you are sitting in the draft position. The Panthers are. You got to get creative.
Well, not only that, sitting in the draft position and also sitting in the situation they are,
yes,
right? Like,
absolutely.
O-line and wide receiver are the biggest glaring needs, but they have a lot of needs. I don't think you could go wrong at 33 unless you keep adding playmakers to an offense that just isn't working.
Dimitri Ravenos, we're here yapping some Panthers right now on the game. I'll throw something else at you, though, while we're sitting here yipping. College football, 14-team playoff, you in?
No,
what do you
it's
want?
ridiculous.
What do you want?
I think 12 is right where it should be, honestly. I think it's a good number, particularly as we drop to 4 power conferences. If you give the winners of those the incentive, I think at 12, you have 3 different levels of 4 teams, and all of them are playing for something. If you are in that 9 to 12 range, you're playing to get in. If you are in the 5 to 8 range, you are playing for a home game. And if you're in 1 to 4, you're playing for a bye. I think that there are 3 different levels of achievement that all means something. I think to add more to it is just silly. And at some point, somebody is going to have to make the point that, like, if we are going to stay married to not paying these guys an NFL wage, we cannot ask them to play an NFL schedule.
And the other part to me, look, I'm with you. 12 is cool, but if you're going to bip it up, just bip it to 16 and be done.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I think that we have gone so long the majority of the sport, we didn't have a conventional way to name a national champion. Then we got 2 teams. Then we got 4 teams. Like, let's see how 12 works before we decide we need more.
I know. But you know how this is the SEC and Big Ten finally got smart and said, you know what? We can run this show. We're going to get what we want, and we're going to try to pile as many teams from our leagues in this playoff as we can. Let's just start throwing stuff out and see what we can get. And that's where I just feel like I'm like you. 12 is fine. Let's see how 12 works, and then reassess it from there and move forward. If you are going to expand it farther, just go 16 and have no buys and be done with the thing. This 14 is just goofy.
Yeah, and this is like, look, I've been saying this over and over again, right? College football is a confederacy at best. We are together as long as it accomplishes our needs, but we're not really looking out for one another.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I think that this is one of those moments where, man, things would move so much quicker and we would have gotten to this point faster and we would know what this point is exactly if this sport had a commissioner. Like, it's the reason that that the NFL can do things that college football simply can't. There is centralized leadership.
But Dimitri, who needs a commissioner when you have the Alliance?
Oh, sure. The Alliance, which, by the way, merely weeks after that press conference announcing that the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 were not going to let realignment further ruin the sport. Mere weeks after UCLA and USC were announced as the newest members of the Big Ten.
No, Terry, you didn't ask the right question. Who needs a commissioner when you have a committee?
True, that's right.
Sure,
we love committees.
Sure.
We're huge fans.
Listen, you have Roger Goodell in the NFL. We have someone that knows her way around a football field named Condoleezza Rice, okay? I think we've got this thing figured out. Actually, do we still have Condoleezza Rice? I can't remember.
I don't know anymore.
No, I don't think she's on the committee anymore. She was on it back when was Andrew Luck's dad was on there?
Yeah.
And a couple other people like that.
Look, she's been on every committee. God love her. She's on every committee regarding
I think that was
football.
before she almost got the Browns job, right?
Hat tip to Tyler Head for remembering Alliance of American Football Commissioner Oliver Luck.
Very nice. Very nice pull by Tyler Head. All right, go take your bike ride. We'll bug you again soon.
All right, boys. Talk to you later.
All right, we'll see you, buddy. Our buddy Dimitri Ravenos. The podcast name again, my favorite.
This team is killing us, which... That's pretty accurate.
Yes, it is. All right. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're rolling football in the 1 o'clock hour. We will continue down that road next. We'll spin back some more from the new wide receiver coach at South Carolina next here on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Tyler Head is now back on video.
Yes, you can see me. My long, need to be cut hair. My I don't have a full beard. I can't grow a full beard. Our guy Elijah has a great beard, and I'm jealous of it because it connects on the sides. I can get about most of the way up my jawline, but when it comes to the sideburns, it won't go all the way up. I don't know what the problem is.
I got male pattern face baldness too, and like I get patches.
Oh yeah.
So that's why you'll never see me more than the 5 o'clock shadow thing because I can't do it.
I can do the goatee thing, and my dad's the same way. Like he can grow like a good goatee, but like the beard, it's patchy.
And now you can see it on video.
Yeah, now you can see it on video. All thanks to our friends at Shepherd's Glass, by the way.
Yes, our buddy Shepherd's Glass sponsoring our Game TV video stream, and also our good friends from Integrated Media who put this baby together and troubleshoot it for us whenever we screw it up.
You know, because we're not the smartest with technology, so they have to come through sometimes and baby step us through the process of like, you got to push this button and you got to do this, and we're like,
unplug this and
that
plug
makes
that
sense.
back in. That's what happened with the. Not to bore you with it, but what happened was we have one camera that's very versatile that turns different ways depending on the show, and I guess in the context of us moving it around, the HDMI plug became loose, so we didn't have our camera too. So I had to again text our buddies Integrated Media, help, and Evan was like, it might be the HDMI plug. Unplug it, plug it back in.
Yeah.
Guess what it was?
The HDMI plug.
Yeah, we plugged it back into work.
That is very reminiscent. Sometimes when my parents have technology problems, since I'm no longer at home, they will call me and say, "Hey, this tablet, this phone, this laptop is not working." I'm like, "Did you turn it on?" Sometimes that's the issue. It's like, "Oh, well, I thought it was already on." No, just hit the little power button, turn it on, and good to go.
Thank you, honey. We love you. Evan's not thinking that when you get the text.
No, he's not. He's like, these guys again.
You know what it is? He's rolling his eyes. He's rolling his eyes going, God, these radio people are so stupid.
It's like, I thought we'd just install it and be over with, but
never
guess
with
not.
these guys.
But you know what? That shows how great of partners they are, that they're willing to help us, even though we're incompetent at times.
Sure, and they do that for you if you
That's right.
at Integrated Media. They're there to help you and troubleshoot and fix things.
There you go.
So give the folks Integrated Media a call. There you go, a little free one there. A little freebie. You're welcome, guys. All right, so football here in the 1 o'clock hour. Mike Fury, new wide receivers coach, presser today. We got a few more cuts. Pick out another good one there. What was the first one you had there, Tyler, that we didn't play yet?
So, he's obviously had a couple stints as head coach at Limestone and previously at Kentucky Christian a couple seasons ago. But, he talked about the difference between the recruiting aspect, which is going to be a very important part of his job, from being a head coach, having to worry about all the recruiting for however many spots you're filling on your roster at a D2 school, to focusing a little bit more singularly on the wide receiver group. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, it becomes a lot easier, right? In regards to now, my focal point is to make sure that my room is the standard that we set. I do think when you're an assistant coach, just coming from that chair before, I do think that is a major response. That's the number one responsibility of any assistant coach, is to make sure that your room is significant enough to be a highly competitive room. To have a lot of talent in that room. And listen, we're all put on this earth to do something, and it's not to just, I tell our guys all the time, it's not to just be average, right? We're put on this world to go do something, if you believe in that, and that's to be great. And I do believe that the Biletnikoffs and the Heisman Trophy winners and all those kind of things and the candidates should come out of that room, right? That should be your standard. But it will make it a lot easier just focusing on 13, 14 guys instead of the joy that I've had over the last 2 years of 205 guys. So it'll be it'll shorten down that time just a little bit.
A little different. Get to micro focus a bit just on
Slicing that down to about 5%.
Exactly. And with what Shane Beamer's looking for, and we'll go to Mario Hardesty really quick. There were some things with that room and regarding recruiting, for an example, that he wanted to improve. And you heard about that as much as development or anything else. And the other thing you heard was there were some issues in that room that got to the head coach, and the head coach didn't feel like should get to him.
Sure. And again, those are things that we're never going to know the intimate details of.
No. And so when you're a position coach, it's recruiting, it's developing, and it's handling your room.
Yep.
You got to be able to do those three things, and if you do those three things, you'll be a position coach for as long as you want to be a position coach.
And kind of similarly to the thing that we talked about with with Sean Elliott coming in to coach tight ends, I think having that head coach experience, it's Division II and Kentucky Christian's a little bit different than Georgia State, and same thing with Limestone, but just the fact that you've had that experience of managing an entire roster and overseeing everything to some degree, having your fingerprints on all aspects of the team, I think that will go a long way. And now, singling it down to just focusing on wide receivers, having a smaller group to manage, because I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but it's a lot easier than having to manage, again, a whole team.
It's a lot more manageable to manage than managing what we're talking about.
Sure.
Absolutely. All right, it's football here in the 1 o'clock hour. We're going to get back to more of Mike Furrey between now and 3 o'clock. We'll get a ton of it. Switch gears real quick. The NFL Combine is happening, and we've been discussing the two guys who we really focus on to see if they can make any kind of, headway at the Combine to help their draft stock is Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette.
Right.
Steve Smith, Sr., NFL Network, was talking about Xavier Legette and had an interesting comparison to a guy that's already in the NFL who we think Legette looks like a second-round pick at worst and a guy that might be able to sneak into the bottom of the first round. How nice would it be to land in Kansas City, by the way? How cool would that be?
How ideal. Which, hey, they need you.
They do. If you can catch it and not drop it,
right,
they love you. All right, so Steve Smith Sr. is comparing Xavier Legette to another former second-rounder whose career has turned out pretty well.
Xavier.
Worthy.
Legley.
Oh,
Legette.
Legette, yeah, South Carolina.
My comp right now, when you want to know who he reminds me of?
Debo?
Nope.
Okay, let's hear it then.
DK Metcalf.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Slightly better.
At this stage or today, head-to-head? At this stage of DK's career or like DK right
Metcalf, slightly better. That's all I'm saying.
I like Steve. I like Steve Smith Sr.
He's not afraid to be opinionated. I'll say that much.
I'm gonna say his 2 years as a Baltimore Raven. I'm a Steve Smith. Look, does he do things? Do you love all the things he's probably done in his life? No. Punching your teammates, probably not a good idea. But he is a fiery dude, man.
And he's honest.
Yes, he is.
He is very honest.
He is. When his first year with the Ravens, they played the Panthers. And he single-handedly skull-kicked the entire Panther secondary. And all he did was talk the whole time.
He's a very intimidating
the whole
guy.
Time. He's hilarious. I do. I'm a huge Steve Smith Sr. guy. But talking about Xavier Legette, remember, DK Metcalf was hurt at the end of his college career.
Sure.
And that's why he fell to the second round, because of the issue with his back. It was a major issue. I can see, look, DK Metcalf is a physical freak. He looks like one of the Avengers, right?
He is that quintessential guy. They always put the photo up of him like without his shirt on. Like this is the ideal NFL like figure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Legette's big, strong. Legette works hard, weight room, everything.
Legette's a physical presence himself. For those that have seen him up close and in person.
So they're kind of the same body type in a way. And, Metcalf, again, his college career kind of got cut short with the injury. So I would say Legette probably a little farther along because he played more his last year. Metcalf got hurt. And there was a huge question mark of could Metcalf even play because of his injury.
Right.
I mean, again, Metcalf is a guy that he's a playmaker. Is he the greatest route runner in the world? No. But he can make big plays down the field for you, and you can throw it to him.
Yep.
And he's so big, strong, and fast. He breaks a couple tackles, and guess where he's at?
End zone.
Yep. So it's not a bad comp if you're Xavier Legette to be compared to. Look, we saw Legette make big plays down the field in the passing game, whether it was just beating dudes deep and making catches, or catching a crosser, and all of a sudden that crosser becomes a 60-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting comp. A very interesting comp.
Yeah, and from a size standpoint, Xavier Legette measures a little bit shorter at 6'3" compared to 6'4". But again, just the physical being of them, they're very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have another little cut from the combine. We're going to get to Trey Knox before we get out of here at 3. I think he's had an interesting quote about Dowell Loggins, but we have to get to my boy Tyler Owens
We do.
at the Combine, Texas Tech safety. Very interesting take on the solar system,
To say the least.
to say the least. All right, it's football here on the game. We'll come back, Firehouse Subtext, the hour 803-404-6100, and we'll yap more football right here on the halftime show on the game. Time for the Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler Head?
Yeah, nameless texter asking the question I think a lot of people are asking today. Any status on the update for the game tonight? As of now, no.
Nothing yet.
We're roughly 5 hours away from first pitch is about to happen.
Talk a minute. Let me go over here and look out the window.
I was going to say, we're roughly about 5 hours away from when first pitch is supposed to happen, but when you look at the forecast and look at how it is currently
it's
out there.
monsoon season.
Yeah, I don't have the highest odds for this game happening tonight, and again, unfortunately, with it being between 3 different venues, no makeups for this weekend, so you just play one game per day, and hopefully you can get them all in. Now, past today, everything looks fine, and then maybe potentially reschedule something in midweek later on.
Yeah, now the weather for Saturday and Sunday more conducive to get those 2 games in. I'm gonna tell you, I just looked outside. Not good.
Not good.
Not good. So my AMS certified meteorologist background tells me it's raining.
I say
a lot.
I'm going to bring my weather rock tomorrow. That'll really tell us.
The weather rock. And again, tomorrow, we are getting you ready for the Battle of Bull Street. 10 to 11:30. Tyler and Elijah will be broadcasting live from Segra, the center field pavilion, I believe it is.
Right in the batter's eye.
Yeah, right in the batter's eye. So we'll have some fun there, getting you ready. We'll talk to some folks from Fireflies. Maybe we'll grab your buddy intern Joe or some other baseball experts and insiders to yap with Tyler and Elijah. Baseball, and baseball. We do football, a lot of baseball tomorrow.
Elijah did volunteer to streak across the field at one point in time yesterday, so I'm going to have to hold him to that.
That's probably not... Well, we do a lot of video here now.
We do. I don't think they would ask us to come back after that.
Yeah, probably our last day at Segra.
Who's the naked guy running on the field?
Nice beard, though. So that's tomorrow, 10 to 11:30. It's at Segra as we get you pumped up for the Battle of Bull Street. Battle of Bull Street tickets between 3 and 6 with Jay and Elijah on the postgame show. And we're going to do some Battle of Bull Street Gamecock baseball trivia. It's very simple. A couple times between 3 and 6, we have 2 pair to give away. We'll do some trivia. We'll say, hey, give us a call. Line up like 3 folks. We're going to do a little multiple choice action to make it simple and make it easy. And if you win it, you snag a couple of tickets for Battle of Bull Street tomorrow.
There you go.
There you go. All right, so what time is it? Yeah, we got to get to our guy.
Got to do this.
Got to get to our guy, Tyler Owens, Texas Tech safety at the Combine. Had a very interesting take on the solar system. Go for it.
You guys are discussing that you don't believe in.
Nah, I don't believe in I'm very religious, so I think we're in the wrong right now. I don't think there's other planets and other stuff like that. I don't know.
What led you to that point to believe that?
I thought you should believe in the heliocentric thing, kids some raw around the sun and stuff, but then I started seeing flat Earth stuff, and I was this is kind of interesting, and then they start bringing up valid points. So, I don't know. Could be real good. You know what I'm saying?
So there was a lot going on there. So for those that did not hear it, he said he does not believe in other planets. He said he originally believed in the heliocentric thing, but he started reading some flat Earth theories and thought they brought up valid points.
So, not only does our boy not believe in planets, but he's also going flat earther.
And that was just to media. That wasn't a team interview that he was in. But this is the NFL Combine. They're going to ask you a lot of weird questions, try and get inside your head to figure out what kind of person you are. I saw where Roma Dunze was asked the question, hey, if a plane was falling from the sky and the pilot passed out, could you land the plane? And he said, no, I don't think I could, which I think is actually a good answer because a lot of us overemphasize, of course I could land a plane. No, you can't. It's not that easy.
I used to go to this arcade, and they had this plane game.
Sure, yeah, it's not the same thing. But so these teams hear these things and read these things, try and get inside your mind, all right, what makes this guy tick? What's he really thinking besides football stuff? So hearing that might end up being a little bit of a red flag for teams.
Well, he is going, look, to be fair, when you have a deep scientific mind like Kyrie Irving tell you that the earth is flat.
Sure.
I mean, come on. Kyrie went to Duke for a year. Stop.
I'm sure he was on the dean's list.
Yeah, he's studied.
Which, it was North Carolina with the fake classes.
Yes,
yeah,
fake classes were North Carolina.
Well, if you're going fake classes, of course you can be on the dean's list, but that's North Carolina.
Yeah, here's the thing. There are no planets. Earth's flat. Okay. But here's the thing about it. Now, if our boy Tyler Owens was playing quarterback,
Oh, this would be a headline.
this would be a thing,
This
right?
was just a funny thing on Twitter that
Right.
people had a good time with. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
He's a safety.
A safety.
I don't know where he's projected to go. Probably not a first-round guy. That might ding him a round or two. I don't know.
You know, but when you play safety, now depending, look, if you're looking at this guy, okay, so once you hear this, if you're playing safety and they give you the dot to where you've got the
you're
the communication in your
right,
helmet,
right.
and you're that guy. If you're, obviously, I don't think our boy Tyler Owens would get the dot. Is my guess.
Probably not.
I could be wrong. This guy could be a football savant. He just believes the Earth's flat and there's no planets. But if you hear if he's not going to be the dot guy on the helmet, he's going to run around and make plays to safety.
Well,
Yes, you got to know coverages, and you can't bust coverages.
look,
But wow.
I worked with a guy that was a big conspiracy theorist.
Oh, sure.
Maybe not the brightest bulb, but very entertaining to talk to.
Oh, yeah. When they put on that tinfoil helmet, it's the best.
That's right.
It is the best. That's Tyler Owens. There are no planets, and the Earth is flat. All right, we'll come back in here. What's trending at 2 next on the Halftime Show? Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We go till 3 on the game. Time to check out what's trending at 2. Sponsored by our pals at Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right. Obviously, what's trending is Shane earlier having his presser, introducing the new wide receiver coach, Mike Furrey. We've kind of talked about Mike and his past. And, again, just because a guy doesn't have experience in the Power 5, Sterling Lucas didn't either. It's worked out really well with Sterling Lucas. They love what Sterling Lucas brings, especially as a recruiter.
Sure.
And we got into this earlier, and you brought up the point. Recruiting is about communicating, bonding, making a connection with maybe even 15 to 17-year-olds.
Sure.
So and look, whether you coached at another Power 5 school, you coached Group of 5, you coached in the NFL, you coached at Limestone, whatever, you coached at Bedrock, I don't know, whatever.
Right.
If you can connect with high school or even late middle school players,
right,
that's really what matters here.
Well, I thought it was interesting that I think Beaver brought it up first, and then Furry, commented on as well that, he was going after Mazeo Bennett as the coach at Limestone.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Mazeo Bennett is a Division I talented wide receiver, and that's why he's here at South Carolina. And I'm sure he wasn't entertaining too many D2 offers, but Furry was still going after him. So, he's a guy that's not unfamiliar with high caliber talent and, trying to get them to come to whatever school he's at. Obviously going to be easier to get him to come to South Carolina as opposed to Limestone. So, he's got that in his regard, at least when it comes to his recruiting.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And look, at the end of the day, again, we'll see what happens with Mike Furrey at South Carolina. The 3 things, in my opinion, you're looking for if you're Shane is A, being able to recruit, B, develop the wide receivers, and C, handle your room.
Sure.
And that's what it's going to come down to.
And again, until we see him in action as a coach during the season, we're not going to know the true answer to any of these questions about him. But as of right now, again, won the press conference, said all the right things.
Press conference is good, man.
Has the resume to back up what you want in a wide receivers coach at both the professional and the college level. So, again, he's going to be in the good graces until he earns the right to not be.
And the one thing I will say, though, it does mean more.
It does mean
here.
More.
And
right.
You got to understand. And again, it's not recruiting. We're screwing this up.
Sure.
It's Cruton.
It's Cruton. ABC, always be Cruton.
In the South, it's Cruton. And Coach Mike, it's not recruiting anymore, my friend.
Right.
It's now
and
Cruton.
Hey, guess what? If you're not Cruton, somebody else is.
Oh, yeah. Cruton your guys, too, in today's world.
It's kind of that thing like when you had a crush on someone back in middle school or something like that, and like, oh, she's not talking to me, and then she's probably talking to that other guy. Well, yeah, if you're not recruiting that player, then somebody else is recruiting them.
Even in middle school, always be Cruton.
Trying to reel them away from you.
Always be Cruton, man. And they're trying to recruit yours.
That's right.
If yours is worth it, they're going to try to recruit yours.
That's right.
And the development, like Mazeo Bennett, we talk about Nicholas Harbor. There are young wide receivers you'd like to see, start to improve and develop so you can get them on the field and play. And that's what Shane was talking about when he was introducing him.
Exactly. And going back to our conversation about Justin Stepp, we're not the ones sitting here saying that, well, Justin Stepp didn't develop wide receivers. It was literally Shane insinuating that earlier on that needs to say, well, if the previous coach wasn't doing it, because he's saying we want a guy that's going to come in here and develop them to the level that we want to. Not that he wasn't developing them at all, but it was not to the level that they wanted. So, and what that means, that's Shane's interpretation.
Exactly.
We don't know. We're just going off of what he said.
And Shane said what all good, smart coaches say, that starts with me, the head coach, because it does. I mean, you hire Justin Stepp, you bring him in, you're also mentoring and developing and working with your coaching staff, and you're like, so again, if the wide receivers, any position, isn't being developed to the level you want as a head coach, eventually that lands in your lap. And it just does.
And again, from all indications through the season, everything was fine as far as Stepp as a wide receivers coach and stuff like that. But again, in Shane's interpretation of where he wanted these receivers to be, it wasn't the level that he wanted, which again, and look, again, he didn't move him to tight ends coach until Coley came in. So when Coley gets hired, he's like, okay, we feel like this guy is a better fit for the wide receivers and the development we want. We're going to move him here. We still like what Stepp can bring to the table in whatever regard as far as, being a position coach. So we're going to move you to tight end. Obviously, Justin Stepp wanted to be a wide receivers coach, so he took the job at Illinois instead. But getting back to our point earlier, this wasn't some grand plan of like, well, I want to fire him, but the people here locally would hate me for it, so I got to keep him on staff. Like, no. If he wasn't doing the job you wanted him to up to the full standard, and again, development was obviously a question, you would have just fired him.
Now, so to that point, if Justin Stepp would have grown up in Indiana, went to school at University of Massachusetts,
Sure.
where he played ball, and then showed up here, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
And again,
Well, he would have fired him because he wasn't a local guy, right?
We are privy to some inside information when it comes to the Gamecock football program. If something like that was going on, we would have heard about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And that smoke hasn't, put it this way, if that smoke's real, that smoke hasn't come over here for us to hear.
I was going to say, like, we would be aware of this if that was the case.
Right. And we haven't gotten anything like that says there was anything like covert or conspiracy theory or anything.
And look, we're not here to tell you all the secrets of the ins and outs of the programs, but we hear things like, oh, well, that's interesting. And something was going on like that, it would have made its way over here.
Put it this way, they kept it away from us.
Right.
If that's the case. All right. So Mike Fury was introduced to the media today. We've got a few cuts from Mike. Which one do you want to hit there next, Tyler?
Yeah, so let's go to this one. This one here, talking about, again, just kind of his, philosophy when it comes to recruiting and, taking on this position.
Yeah, it becomes a lot easier, right? In regards to now, my focal point is to make sure that my room is the standard that we set. I do think when you're an assistant coach, just coming from that chair before, I do think that is a major response. That's the number one responsibility of any assistant coach, is to make sure that your room is significant enough to be a highly competitive room. To have a lot of talent in that room. And listen, I mean, we're all put on this earth to do something, and it's not to just, I tell our guys all the time, it's not to just be average, right? I mean, we're put on this world to go do something, if you believe in that, and that's to be great. And I do believe that the Biletnikovs and the Heisman Trophy winners and all those kind of things and the candidates should come out of that room, right? That should be your standard. But it will make it a lot easier just focusing on 13, 14 guys instead of the joy that I've had over the last 2 years of 205 guys. So it'll be it'll shorten down that time just a little bit.
I think it's interesting, when you hear him say, "Look, we're all put here to do something good or something great or something special, and we got to find it. We got to strive for it. If we're going to do something, that's where we got to go to make it special and good and great and all things of that nature." Because this guy, again, I don't know what kind of wide receiver coach is going to be at South Carolina, but I know that if you look at his backstory, this guy wasn't a five-star recruit. This guy wasn't, he was a walk-on at Ohio State. So he started off grinder from the get-go. And so that's kind of the way he's attacked his own personal life.
Right.
Is that way. Left Ohio State, went to Northern Iowa, put up a bunch of numbers.
Sure.
Played in the Arena League, the XFL, got his chance in the NFL, really grinded his way to an NFL career.
Sure.
Again, like we talked about earlier, he was a wide receiver coach with the Bears. I mean, that's a thumbs up. But there's also been a lot of grinding in that coaching career, just like when he was a player.
Right.
So that's the mentality. That's what he knows.
Sure.
And he's going to bring that to the wide receiver room, and hopefully that will then get that level of development that Shane's looking for.
We'll hit one more here, a little over 2 minutes long. But this is him talking about development in terms of simplifying the game of football for the guys within that room.
Yeah, I think it's all presentation. I think it's all about presentation. I think you can give too much information instead of just the simplicity of what you want to get done. You could sit here all day and talk about the little things that you need to fix when really there's only a couple big things you need to master, right? And so, but I think it's all. I literally think the entire thing is about presentation. It's getting to know your players, about how they learn. It's getting to know if they're a board guy or if they're a grass guy. It goes all the way back to just learning about where they're coming from. Right, their household, the way they were raised, the everything about them has everything to me of how they learn, and how you can get them to open up, how you can get them to recall, right? And we'll start that when we come back from spring break. But I think that's the entire thing is presentation, and it's not just being a dictator of this is what we want and get it done and that's it. If not, you're out. well, you'll never develop the young man, right? You'll never develop him if you don't give him a chance, or if you don't maximize the way to teach him in different ways, whatever those are. You have to find those out, and we'll start doing that here after. I'm gonna go catch some sleep after I came here and they took me some grit night last night to 12 o'clock with same clothes on that I had on the field. But I'm excited for that. And I'll tell you this, a lot of coaches aren't allowed to do that. And a lot of it's because the head coach just mandates that you just get it done. And I think that was one of the things that's very appealing to Coach Beamer, as I mentioned earlier, about his dedication and passion to make that impact. That goes along with it. You know, you got to be able to have the freedom to build those relationships. You got to be able to have the freedom to have the time, right, to develop, and the awareness that you got to develop. And again, like I said, that's college and pros, because it's such a now world that we live in. That so I'm fortunate enough to do that, and we'll start when we get back.
To me, that's an excellent piece of sound and getting into the idea of what Mike Furrey wants to do as a wide receivers coach. And I love hearing that take because I think the day of do this, why, because I said so, is over as a coach. I think that, again, just the world changes. Young people change. Heck, when, back in the 1800s when I was young, again, tell me why. Because I said so. Well, that's stupid. I never liked that when I was a kid. Because I said so. Why don't you explain to me why, and then I get a better understanding of why we're doing it. Maybe I'll start doing it and have a better feeling of doing it if you actually take a second and tell me why we're doing it and why I'm doing it.
Right.
So I like the idea of, okay, instead of saying that's why we do it and you got to do it, if you don't do it, you're out. It's like, okay, here's the way I'm going to teach it first with you. That's not working. Let's find another way to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, let's find another way to make it work. And learning about a lot of deeper dive stuff about these kids, because sometimes the more you learn about a kid, the easier it is to unlock how you can coach them and get them to their potential.
Well, and I feel like now to get jobs in today's world of football, whether it be at the college pro level, you got to have a philosophy behind what you're doing. You can't just be, do it again. Why? Because I said so. It's like, no, this is our objective. This is our goal. This is the level of development that we're trying to get to with this player, with this group of players, whatever it may be. And again, that's just kind of him explaining his philosophy on how he goes about doing that for developing this room.
And I just liked that whole philosophy of coaching players. I just think it's easy to say nope. No's easy, right? How about this? Well, it's not going to work doing it that way. Let's find another way. That's truly how you get development and you get progress. You can't put up brick walls and say, nope, that's not it. Okay, well, what is it? Is there another way to do it? I just always like to hear that, because I just think today that's the way you got to go.
Sure.
You just can't be rigid and, you're going to do it the way I want to do it because it's the way we're going to do it. Well, we can still do it your way, but can we find a different way to achieve the goal of doing it your way?
Right.
So that was excellent stuff there from Coach Furrey. All right, we're going to come back in here because we got a baseball game.
We do.
Might not be playing tonight, but we got a pretty important series. South Carolina Clemson going to get some cuts from Coach Kingston, maybe get some Stuart Lake in as well. And then there's a huge basketball game on Saturday. We got to get some Lamont Paris. We need more hours. We really flat out need more hours today.
I made the comment at the start of the show. There's some days we come in here and like, man, how are we going to fill 3 hours? And some days like we only have 3 hours.
That's right. We could fill 10. Let's come back, talk about rivalry weekend. South Carolina Clemson. Coach Kingston speaking on the uniqueness of the rivalry next here on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on The Game. halftime show. What's trending at 2 here on the game? Terry Ford, Tyler Head. All right, baseball. Tonight, weather doesn't look great. We'll see what happens. Game should be at Founders between South Carolina and Clemson. Saturday looks really good for the Battle of Bull Street.
Yeah, I was going to say, if tonight's game happens, bring your rain boots.
Rain boots. Those big, what are your waders? Those like waders they get. Remember they go fly fishing and they stay in the water?
Things, yeah.
Those hip waders?
That's right.
Wear those.
It's more of a northern thing.
Yeah. I didn't do that. I'm not a fisherman. I like to go sit in the boat and talk, crack a beer.
Yeah.
Fishing thing I can pass on, but I like hanging in a boat.
In the South, we just stand with our feet in the mud.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
All right, so get the hip waders if they sell them. Grab those babies. Get your boots. Grab your rain hat and a raincoat and come to the game, if it is tonight. Do not forget, tomorrow, 10 to 11:30, Elijah and Tyler are getting you ready for the Battle of Bull Street, our special Battle of Bull Street show from 10 to 11:30 over at Segra, right behind the Batter's Eye on the patio area there. We will have some folks in Fireflies. We'll have guests. It'll be fun getting you ready for Clemson, South Carolina, the Battle of Bull Street. All right, Mark Kingston. Let's go with cut 23, Tyler. Talking about the uniqueness of the Clemson-South Carolina rivalry.
Yeah, I think I love it like most people in the state love it, and I think a lot of people nationally love it. You're going to see two highly rated teams with storied traditions. You're going to see some of the best players in the country compete in 3 venues in 3 cities. I guess 2 cities when you factor in where the when the neutral game is here. But it's just everything you want. It's high competition. It's big fan bases. It's a rivalry. It's everything you're looking for. So I think when it was designed years ago, they got it right.
I mean, it is a fantastic rivalry, and it's intense, man. My first year here, they were telling me this is like an NCAA tournament game.
It is, and look, both programs have had quite a bit of success over the years. So typically when you run into each other early on in the season like this, it's going to be one that, is a really good litmus test, as we've talked about, for both programs, that both have aspirations of not only making the postseason, but making Omaha, where these two teams have squared off before. I was reading D1 Baseball yesterday, and Kendall Rogers, the senior editor over there, put this at the top of his list of things that he's paying attention to this weekend from a national standpoint. There's other, ranked on ranked series. I think Indiana and Alabama are playing this weekend, but this is the one that has his attention more than anything else, because again, it's two programs that, especially after last year with South Carolina going to a super, have their sights set on going farther and going to Omaha.
I mean, think about this for a minute. You and I weren't here for it, obviously. We've been here for regular season games between South Carolina and Clemson.
Right.
How about a South Carolina-Clemson game in Omaha? How intense is that?
And Wes and Chris were telling me about, and they weren't even there, just watching it on TV and the intensity of that all those years ago. So yeah, it's a big deal, and baseball is important to both these fan bases, because look, there are fan bases, and maybe it's not in the SEC, but there are fan bases out there that forget that they have a baseball team, because that's how little of importance it means to them.
Right.
But in the SEC and the ACC as well, with some of those schools like Clemson, it means a lot. And again, this weekend's going to be very intense, and hopefully South Carolina comes out on top.
All right, let's grab another deal with Coach Kingston. You're talking about changing things based on the weather, because again, this weekend, especially today or tonight, the weather could be squirrely. Here's Coach Kingston about the situation with the weather.
A capital TBD. That's the best I can tell you. We'll look at everything, matchups, what makes the most sense. That's if we get to that point, we'll put our heads together and try to figure out what makes the most sense.
And that's what it is. You just gotta. It's fluid. It's just fluid. But we've discussed this, that there will not be a doubleheader.
No.
So if this game gets rained out tonight, you're going to see, because the weather seems like it's going to be okay for Saturday and Sunday.
Sure.
And like you said earlier, maybe they'll play it at some other point in time in the year if it all would work out with the schedule. If not, you have a 2-game series.
And that question really revolves around pitching, because they are keeping the same rotation. So Jones, SQ, and Kimball on Sunday. And the question would be, okay, well, do you just let Eli Jones sit for the weekend? Do you put him in the bullpen? Do you maybe move him into the Saturday role and put SQ in the bullpen? Like, you have options if you're only playing 2 games. And like Kingston said, you don't want to jump the shark too much until they actually tell you you're not playing a game tonight, but you do have options if you want to move things around.
So let's say you do have a rain out tonight. And again, you got to know the pitcher. If it would work out and it's okay, I'd move Eli Jones to tomorrow.
Yeah, and then, he's only, it'd be one less day of rest, but I feel like he should be fine by the time next Friday rolls around, so it's nothing too out of the ordinary. It's not a conference series next weekend, so you feel okay about that.
That's why I say it depends on the pitcher. Some pitchers, you can move them a day here and there, and they're fine. And some, they're so rigid, and it's not a criticism, it's just the way they are. Some are just rigid and don't want to move.
And also, you're going to get to the point later in the season where you're going to have one series that ends on Sunday and one series that starts on Thursday, so you're going to go from pitching on Friday to Thursday later on in the season, of course, assuming nothing else really shifts around the lineup. So it's not something that you're not going to have to deal with at some point later in the season. That might obviously be beneficial for him trying that this early in the year.
So we'll see how the whole thing breaks down depending on what happens tonight. Weather not looking good, but again, who knows? But we'll see. All right, Lamont Paris and the men, 11:30 pregame, noon tip. To me, what's very interesting is the tempo of this basketball game.
We bring that up every single time because it's so important.
It's so big. Florida wants to play really fast.
Yep.
They play the third fastest of any team in the SEC behind Kentucky and Bama. They are in the top 35 in the nation in tempo. Florida wants to push it. South Carolina wants to do the opposite. And here's Lamont Paris. That's cut 12, Tyler. Talking about controlling the tempo, which is quite vital versus the Gators.
Maybe. I think you have to. I think a couple things you have to do against them. They have tremendous length. They block shots. They offensive rebound because of that, too. I think those are two scenarios that you have to handle. We get back on defense, and we play really hard. So teams don't typically shoot a good, high-quality shot within the first 7 seconds against us. Not normally. Pace it is what it is. I think it's just doing a good job on the boards, not turning the ball over. That keeps them out of transition if you don't turn the ball over and get a pretty good shot. And then, playing halfway decent. You got to make a shot or two. You got to guard the ball relatively effectively. You got to run them off the three-point line. They got a variety of guys that can do that. Their guard trios are good as well. And they got a good team. I think you just got to stick to your principles for the most part and just and play a pretty good game.
So basically control the tempo and the pace and play your way.
Which, is that not the objective of every single game this year?
It is. We talk about it all the time because it's such a thing.
Yeah.
And it is. This team, and it's not demeaning what else they do.
Sure.
But they want to play a certain style, a certain pace, and a certain tempo.
And as you mentioned, they're only third in the SEC behind Kentucky and Alabama when it comes to their tempo. We've seen against both those teams, yes, the second half got away from you against Alabama. When you can control them and keep them at your pace, you're in that game.
Well, because if you've ever played any basketball, when you're not playing how you want to play, sometimes you get discombobulated, you get out of your element, you get out of your comfort zone, because if you want to run up and down the court and run and gun and play fast and, get rebounds and break and do all that stuff and get shots off early in the shot clock and just, you want a lot of possessions.
Sure.
If the other team slows you down and they're playing their pace, that's advantage team that's playing their pace. Doesn't automatically win you the game, but what it does, you're in your comfort zone. They're not in their comfort zone.
It's frustrating for the other team because it's like, I don't know, getting stuck behind a slow car when you're driving on a one-lane road, and you can't. There's no passing zone. You can't get around, and you're just getting more and more aggravated, and may cause you to do something that you weren't otherwise intending to do.
Like run them off the road?
Sure, yeah, something like that if it comes to that. But again, at that point in time, they're controlling the pace. They're controlling how fast you go, and there's no way around it.
That's the perfect analogy. You hit it right there with if you've ever been in a hurry.
Yeah. Oh, it's always when you're in a hurry.
Absolutely. You're in a hurry, and you get behind the Amish buggy.
Yes.
I've done that. I can't talk about it.
And it's suddenly a twisty, windy road where there's no passing lanes.
You can't get around anybody. You're going 10 miles an hour. The horse and buggy's in front of you. You can't get by them. The kids are looking out the back of it, making faces at you, sticking their tongue at you, whatever.
Yeah, the International Harvester.
Yes, exactly. And you can't get past it. You can't get past it. That's what it's like when you're playing. If you're Florida playing against South Carolina, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Now you're out of your comfort zone, and South Carolina's totally in theirs.
Yeah.
Totally in theirs.
And you know what? That person is singing songs, and they're in a good place in that car in front of you. They could care less
or
about
that
your
tractor.
frustration. That's
exactly. It's all good. Absolutely all good. And South Carolina in these big games has not got off to slow starts and got behind big in any of them.
Right, which
Keep that in mind.
that's the key. As long as
That's
you can
the
get off
key.
to a good start, stay in the game, then you can control.
All right, we'll get back in here. It's March 1st.
Finally.
Greatest day in the history of the world.
course.
Next on the Halftime Show. Time for the greatest day in the history of the world, March 1st. Let's start with 1955. Like, what? Yeah. You heard of Allen Fieldhouse.
Yes.
Kansas Jayhawks, on this day in 1955, host their first basketball game in the Allen Fieldhouse. They beat rival Kansas State 77-66.
You know, that's another thing that I love about college sports compared to pro sports. And, you know, I'll say we definitely build more new basketball venues than football stadiums, but for the most part, we have a lot of very old venues, 100-year-old football stadiums, 70-year-old, basketball arenas like that, where it's like there's tradition and there's history in like every corner and nook and cranny of those places, as opposed to NFL stadiums where, we build new ones every 20 years. And it's like, oh, well, this one's not up to standard. We can't host a Super Bowl here.
We need more suites.
Exactly.
Sure. And in Allen Fieldhouse, you think about 1955, you go, okay, 80 years almost.
Yeah.
Allen Fieldhouse.
It's insane.
Or 70 years, I should say, 1955.
So it'll be 69 years.
Yeah, 70 years next year.
That's right.
Because it was 1955.
That's right.
I got to use my phone. Give me a second. All right. Remember we talked about the other day, Calvin Murphy setting the NBA record with consecutive free throws?
Yep.
Well, he finally missed one on this day in 1981. The streak went to 78.
Okay, so going back to earlier, did the announcer before he took this shot, so he hasn't missed a free throw in, 78?
Calvin Murphy's made 77 consecutive free throws.
Surely he will make
for
78.
Right, 78 consecutive free throws, clank. So Calvin Murphy's streak was broken, probably by the play-by-play announcer, is my guess.
Yep.
That's probably it. All right, on this day, 1988, Wayne Gretzky becomes the NHL's all-time assist leader. I know that's shocking to no one. Past the great Gordie Howe. In only 9 seasons, Gretzky set that record.
I don't think we've gone a week without at least one Gretzky in the greatest day in the history of the world.
It's crazy. 1996. Atlanta's Lenny Wilkins, a very underrated NBA coach, won an NBA title with the Supersonics, got to 2 finals with the Sonics, becomes the first NBA coach to reach 1,000 career victories. At that time, Wilkins was the head coach of the Hawks. Beat a team that he played for as a player, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And this made me sad. Sugar Ray Leonard was my favorite boxer.
Right.
Growing up. And Leonard was way past his prime in 1997. Came out of retirement, fought Hector Macho Camacho, and got knocked down got KO'd in the 5th round. Only time Leonard was ever knocked out in his career, and then he went finally back to permanent retirement. Look, I never tell anyone when to retire.
Sure.
I never do it. Because as long as someone's ringing your phone and you want to go do it, go do it.
Right.
But, yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard at the end there, just like a lot of these boxers, they just can't stop, and that one stopped him.
And that, there's a lot of athletes that fall into that. And we talked about Michael Jordan in his time with the Wizards at the end of his career, which, again, didn't tarnish his legacy at all.
Right.
I mean, he's the greatest basketball player that's ever lived. But when you're watching him play for the Wizards, you're like, that's Michael, but it's not Michael. And same thing with Sugar Ray Leonard, again, like I'm sure he could have still beaten up 99% of the population without breaking a sweat, but being in high-level competitive boxing, it's like, man, you're just not where you used to be.
No. And he realized actually he'd never been KO'd.
Right.
Ever in his career. And then that happened. It was like, you know what? I think it's time to exit. Time to exit. All right, it's the greatest day in the history of the world, brought to you by 1-800-GOT-JUNK here on The Game. All right, basketball still, we've been discussing this. We got into a lot of stuff. Today's been chock full. Mike Furrey, new wide receiver coach, introduced by Shane Beamer. Presser today, you heard it on The Game at 11 a.m. Obviously, South Carolina, Clemson this weekend. We've talked about that. Played you some Mark Kingston and Stuart Lake Sound.
Women's team won last night, by the way.
And we haven't even gotten to that yet. And that's what I want to touch on now is that was such a methodical dismantling of a basketball team.
Yeah.
Arkansas came out, hit some threes early, had the lead. It was close. And it wasn't like, sometimes when South Carolina wins, it's just an avalanche, right?
Sure.
This one was like Chinese water torture. They just, you look up and go, now they're ahead. Oh, wow, they're up by double digits. Oh, my God. How much are they up by now?
So South Carolina was going to dominate this game so much, they spotted Arkansas 2 points before the game even started.
It
still wasn't enough.
It was just a methodical butt whooping.
Yeah.
Last night in Fayetteville. They look up. No one's guaranteeing anything, but man, they're good.
Yeah,
I mean,
and Ashlyn Watkins continues to get better game by game.
And I'm watching. I had it on, and I'm watching. I'm watching it in and out.
Sure.
Because I know this is a thumping.
Well, I mean, most games end up being that way, and when you're up by what was the halftime score, 47-31, yeah, it's like all right.
It was, but just watching Watkins, and just going, oh my God.
Right.
I mean, look at both ends of the court. She's playing D like a demon too.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and what Chloe Kitts brings skill-wise. I mean, she made a move last night in the post, and her footwork was so good, and she ended up with a little up and under layup, and the defender was just like, "Where'd she go? Where's she at? Where'd she go?" I mean, and then when you look at what they do on the perimeter. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, Pow leads the nation in 3-point shooting. Raven Johnson. There are nights Raven Johnson takes a couple shots. There's nights Raven Johnson looks to score. You've got Bree Hall hitting some big threes. They're deadly everywhere this year.
Well, and that speaks to how deep of a team that they are. And I always love looking at bench points comparisons whenever they play anybody. Bench score for South Carolina last night, 50. Arkansas 6.
Run that one more time.
50-6 on bench points. They are so deep. And again, like Chloe Kitts, a normal starter, coming off the bench last night. I think they put Sanaya Fagan in at the starting spot. Like you can rotate these girls in and out, and it doesn't matter. Every combination's good.
And that's that. And then you bring this freshman off the bench.
Yeah.
This sensational freshman. She had a couple of minutes in the second half. And look, and I get it. And, Arkansas, again, there's not an intensity level at this point because South Carolina's up by 1 billion. But Fawali just hit another gear. And I think she scored like 3 buckets in it felt like a 10-second stretch. All of a sudden you're looking up going, it was a short span of time and she just takes over the game.
I do want to tip my hat to Arkansas, though, because their identity is a team that shoots a buttload of three-pointers. And they didn't no matter what the deficit in that game was, they didn't let that change their identity. They shot 41 three-pointers last night. Only made 8 of them, but by God, they kept throwing them up.
They fire them, man. They fire them. Let's get a quick Dawn cut. Tyler, number 35 with Dawn talking about the team staying focused. Let's get that one in here real quick.
Just creating good habits. We don't let our foot off the gas when it comes to just doing things the right way. That's everything. On and off the court is trying to have those habits that can only help you. And this team has found a way to figure out ways to win, whether it's playing bad or whether it's playing great. They find a way to win. And I, again, proud of them for being able to be where they are today. But we know that our next opponent, whoever our next opponent is, will give us their best effort.
We didn't bring up Camila Cardoza.
I know.
Think about that for a minute.
Finally back playing again.
Averaging a double-double. We didn't even talk about her. This basketball team is deep and it's talented. No one's saying that they're unbeatable. We're not saying that. But put it this way, if you're going to beat them, you got to bring your A-plus game.
And as now we've entered March, they're locked in.
Oh, yes.
They're ready for the postseason.
Yes, they are.
Which is terrifying to everyone else.
We'll come back in here. Our Firehouse sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. Maybe yip with Jay Phillips for a little bit as well. Do not forget your chance to win Battle of Bull Street tickets between 3 and 6. A little trivia, Gamecock baseball trivia. That's coming up with Jay and Elijah as well. Halftime show, Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Final segment before we get out of here on the game. All right, time to get our Firehouse subtext of the hour here on the Halftime Show. Our boy, buddy Jay Phillips here hanging with us. Tyler, what do you have there on the old Firehouse subtext line?
Yeah, so, and I think we were guilty of maybe getting this name wrong until today. Nameless Texter says, we need name clarification. Is it pronounced like Nick Fury or a furry animal?
Furry.
It is.
It's furry.
Furry.
It's a furry animal.
Like a furry animal.
Furry animal. I mean, I think
Hey,
Fury is
look,
cool.
I said Fury earlier on in the week, so I've been corrected.
I think Fury's cooler, but it's furry.
Now, was it
Jay, Tyler had a great idea here, though. Listen to this.
about
Don't make me be.
Oh, yeah. Don't make me Coach Fury. Let me always be Coach Furry. Make him mad.
Look at that guy.
I see that.
Look at that guy over there.
I guarantee at one point in his coaching career, that statement has been said.
Or some semblance of that.
Some variation of it, yes.
That seems fair.
All right. So, new coach was introduced. Also, Shane, I mean, the media talked to Shane for almost half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, it wasn't, Shane had a little something there about the situation that has arose over bringing in another wide receiver coach. It was subtle.
Yeah, we've said this. I think today, whether it was clarification or whether he was furthering his point or however you may want to look at it, and I still understand from fan points of view that there are different feelings about this. But the fact of the matter is they felt they needed more production from the position, and that the best way to do that was through someone who they felt was an even better teacher, developer, coach, period. I mean, this isn't really, and I keep saying it, they fired Montario Hardesty for the same reason. And I had another guy hit me yesterday. Listen, they moved Justin on purpose, so they forced him out. No, they didn't. If they wanted to force him out, it's easy.
Just
You're
fire
fired.
him.
Jay,
Right.
we've been having this conversation for 3 hours because people are convinced because he's loved so much locally, they didn't want to fire him because of the optics, which that doesn't make any sense.
That makes zero
Just
sense.
fire the guy.
Yeah. Right. And Shane's not. Listen, we've talked about it a bunch. They like what he's good at, and they felt that he could still be good at those things by moving into a new position. And Shane's explained this that it might be beneficial in his career. That you still have and that you could learn new things. I mean, lots of coaches coach multiple positions.
Sure,
that
Shane's coach multiple positions.
That Justin didn't want to is also fine.
Yeah.
But I am growing tired of this notion that he was demoted. He wasn't, because he got the same pay. I mean, a demotion would have been, I'm moving you to analyst,
right,
and I'm cutting your pay by 2/3. That's a demotion. It was a reassignment with the same pay.
And I think this way on it, too. If Justin Stepp took it as a demotion, that's how he feels.
That's on him, and that's cool.
And, and again, that's fine, because maybe if I'm Justin Stepp, I walk out of Shane's office going, I just got demoted. Man, we don't know what, and if that's Justin's feeling, that's Justin's feeling.
That's fine.
But Shane Beamer, from everything we've heard, been told, whatever, this was not, in his eyes, looked at as I'm demoting my coach. I'm moving him to another position to coach because I like his skill set. I just found a chance to bring in a guy who can maybe take my receivers to another level to where they are right now.
Yeah.
That didn't work out because that cat skated down the road to Georgia.
Right.
And now and there are people that are saying, well, see, if you wouldn't have done that in the first place and all this other stuff.
I can't buy into that.
But I see it because, again, it's not like James Coley sat down, okay, let's play. We haven't a chance to play the game in a while, you and I.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
You be Shane Beamer, I'm James Coley.
Okay.
Talk to me about being in Columbia.
Listen, we got a good program. We're on the rise. We're recruiting well. We're in the SEC, and the fan base is ready to go. We've hit a little lull. What we need from you is the energy and teaching to make things even better in Columbia.
I'm on board now until I can find a better gig. Where do I sign? Right. I mean, if you're Shane and you know that he's going to skate first chance he gets, obviously you're not hiring.
By the way, I'm better gig. We won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Want to come coach for me?
Yeah.
You're better gig.
And that's what happened. And when James was hired by Dowell and Shane, Georgia didn't have an opening.
Right. So
then Georgia had an opening.
Look, again,
and Georgia also lost 2 coaches to head coaching gigs this year.
Right. I mean, look, I don't tell people how to think. Think however you want. If you think there's a big conspiracy theory, that's fine. You can think it. It's okay.
Yeah.
But we're just telling you, from everything that's been told and heard and whatever, if there was a big conspiracy, Jay and Tyler, nobody let us in on it.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, I've
And
had
that's
multiple
just-
conversations with people around the program about this, and I come back to one basic tenet that I have said so many times. They fired Montario Hardesty
Yes.
because they wanted more production from that position.
Right.
They did not fire Justin Stepp.
But Jay, Montario Hardesty's not a local guy.
I get it.
And,
And if
guys,
that's the only thing that you're hang up, I can't help you.
And fellas,
look again, like I told you, I kind of kid when I say this. I'm a local guy. Again, I do it a lot. I was born 3 blocks that way.
Which
That's where
one?
right there.
It's better on
I went to
video.
school at that
Which one?
college right there. Okay?
Where's that college?
Right there. I mean, I'm local. It doesn't bother me because I understand what the head coach is attempting to do for his program. Period. End of story.
Thank you for your clarification.
Where were you born?
I don't know.
Jay, Elijah.
The back of a
Battle of
truck.
Bull Street tickets coming up. A couple of pair on the show. Fine job, Tyler. We'll talk to you Monday with the halftime show. Well, Tyler will. I'll be out.